Hey everyone, I am here to give you my take on Iyanla Fix My Life. This is season 6, episode 11. It was titled Witness to a Killing, Philando's Fiance. Now, of course, when we say Philando, if you live in America and you have to be like living under a rock to not know of the name Philando. Philando Castile is who we're speaking of. Yeah, this episode was amazing. Like, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know it was coming, but like, it was a tearjerker. It was educational. It was like more of the story unfolded. Like, it was just, it took me back to the time when I first heard about the story. But whatever the case, before I jump into this great episode, if this is your first time on my channel and you are not a part of the family, aka you're not a subscriber, you may as well click that subscribe button. I promise to give good commentary on your favorite shows. Okay. Now that we've gotten that out the way, thank you to my returning subscribers, but let's get into it. So, Iyanla, this week, the theme of this episode is trauma, dealing with trauma, grief, and trying to live beyond that. Okay, so we have Diamond Reynolds. Diamond Reynolds is the fiance of Philando Castile, who was in the car with him at the time that he was shot and killed by the police officer during a routine traffic stop. Mind you, her 4-year-old baby was in the back seat. This happened on July 6, 2016, so it's only been a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. So it's still pretty fresh. Basically, Iyanla is speaking to Diamond because Diamond has her guard up at this point. She's really defensive. She's very irritable. She's angry, which is, all of these things are completely understandable. But she doesn't want to repeat that cycle in her daughter. She wants to break that cycle. So she's basically coming to Iyanla to figure out how to like move forward in life in a healthy manner. Okay. So of course, before Iyanla even digs into the story, she asks like who Philando was to her, kind of trying to think of good memories. And then she asks Diamond, what did he bring to your life? What positive thing did Philando bring to your life? And then Diamond says, he brought stability to my life. He brought purpose to my life. He brought structure to my life. I woke up every day having, a purpose in life for him and for my daughter. And now I just feel like all that is gone. Before she was with him, she didn't have a lot of confidence. She had a lot of self-esteem issues. And when she was with him, he allowed her to be herself and accepted her for who she was. And she was able to trust a man. So she really missed that about him. And she could tell that he genuinely loved her and her daughter. And he was a good man. She is asked, Iyanla asked her, like, okay, so who are you? Like, outside of Philando, who are you? She says, I am a mother. I'm a woman, a daughter. I'm human, It's just a lot of pressure trying to live up to people's expectations. And then Iyanla asked her, was Philando trying to do that? And she said, well, yeah, I would say he lived up to his mother's expectations because his mother raised him really well. He opened doors for me. I mean, he was just like a good guy. He was a gentleman. He protected me. Okay. So all in all, she has great things to say about him, and she felt like the day that he died, which Iyanla corrects her. She said, did he die? She said, okay, the day he was taken away from me. She said, was he taken away from you? Okay, the day that he was killed. And she's basically trying to have her sit in that realness of him being killed. The day that he was killed, that's when everything changed for her. And she felt like she lost a piece of herself. So then Iyanla asks her, retell me that day, replay that day, what happened. So of course, we only saw camera footage from the actual incident with the police. But she starts us at the beginning of the day. They lived together. They slept very close to one another. And so basically, when he woke up in the morning, she could feel when he's getting out of the bed. So when he woke up, she woke up. That particular morning, like, everything seemed fine. She had her day ahead of her. She was going to go get her hair done, yada, yada, yada. Before he left out of the house, he grabbed his firearm out of the closet. Iyanla asked, why did he grab his firearm? And then Diamond stated that they lived in a neighborhood that wasn't necessarily the safest neighborhood. A lot of things happened in their neighborhood, from stealing to prostitution to crime. Everything happened. So he really had the firearm. He was licensed to carry it. And he had it to protect himself and to protect her and her daughter. So I thought that was very important to mention as well. So he wasn't a bad guy. It was just the neighborhood he lived in and that he grew up in. He was used to having to need some sort of protection just in case anything happened. Okay, so then she says that before they were pulled over, they were like leaving the grocery store, and then they were driving and they were pulled over. They were told that they were pulled over because of a busted taillight, which they wouldn't know if they had a busted taillight because they're in the car, so somebody would have to tell them. But we see from the police's camera, the police pulled them over because he thought that they were suspects they looked like suspects in a robbery. So he was like racial profiling them. I don't know if he ever even saw their face since he was driving behind them. I'm not sure, but he went up to them and told them it was because of a busted taillight. So he already had like preconceived notions as to who he thought that they were, which they were not these suspects that he was looking for. So the police goes up to the car. Philando is driving, so of course he asks Philando for his license and registration. He's looking around for his ID. He looks in his glove compartment. It wasn't there. He looks in his armrest. It wasn't there. And he knows if it's not in those two places, then the only other place it has to be is in his wallet with the rest of his identification, and his wallet is in his pocket, but his firearm is also in his pocket. So of course, I'm sure Philando and Diamond, just like many other people in the world, have watched and seen and heard of all these crazy incidents of like police shootings with black men unarmed going around like in the nation. So of course, Philando, being armed, he wanted to warn the police officer like, hey, just letting you know, I do have a firearm on me. I have to reach in my pocket to get this my license, but I just let you know I am like licensed to carry. And so the officer is like, okay, don't pull it out. Like, he instantly gets scared. And that lets me know, like, because he already came up to the car thinking one thing about them. So he was already on edge. He wasn't necessarily calm. He's reaching into his pocket and he's like, don't pull it out. And even Philando and Diamond is trying to tell him like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just getting my wallet. And he instantly starts shooting nonstop into the car, like shooting to kill. Like, he shot him like 10 times. At this point, like, Diamond is screaming. After the last shot, the baby gets out the back seat. The baby is 4, runs out the back seat, runs to the other police officer because she's frightened. At this point, like, the other police officer is a stranger, but she'd rather be anywhere else than in the car because at that point, you never know if the officer is going to turn the gun on the other 2 people in the car. So Diamond is trying to be calm. She tells him, like, he tells her, don't move. And, oh, I told him not to aim for the gun. And she's like, he wasn't. You told him to get his ID, and that's what he was doing. At this point, she knew that she couldn't do anything, couldn't make any sudden movements. She's always on her phone, so she's like, what can I do? Somebody needs to know this story. I don't know if I'm going to live or die, but somebody's going to have to tell this story. I don't care if it's a stranger. So she gets her phone, goes on Facebook Live, puts it up as police. So, of course, people get a notification about that on their phone. They're going to immediately click on it. She pulls up the live, and it shows him literally dying in the front seat. A lot of us have seen this video. Personally, that video was so like traumatic for me to watch. I could only imagine her actually being there. And her 4-year-old daughter, like 4. Like, my daughter is 3, okay? I could only imagine my daughter witnessing something like that. But 4 years old, like, that is devastating. And for me to watch that, like, at that point, like, I'm telling y'all, I had a problem with speeding before, like, because, like, oh my gosh, I'm running late. I have to speed to everywhere I'm going. Now, I don't care because I don't want to get pulled over. Because, to be honest, I am terrified to get pulled over by the police officer because I'm not going to want to reach in my purse. I'm not going to try to want to grab for my ID. I don't want to lift up the armrest. Like, call me paranoid, but this was a situation where this man did absolutely, like, nothing wrong. Like, wasn't even speeding or doing anything. And they say it's because of busted taillight, but we all know that they got pulled over because of what is that? Because like, he thought they were suspects in a robbery. But the fact that he was pulled over and shot and killed, like, their day started off totally normal, and for that to happen was just like, whoa. So I don't know. After that day, I literally stopped speeding because I couldn't do it. Like, and all of the other videos that come out on the internet of these, like, senseless killings of black men, I can't watch it. Like, I cannot, because, like, it hurts too bad to watch that. And it's just really hard situation when you know that you're watching it and then nothing's gonna happen. Like, the police officers aren't gonna be reprimanded. Like, nothing is gonna come from it. There will be no justice and there will be no peace. And you're waiting for the next video to come out. Like, it's sad. Whatever the case, the video continues to play. I never saw this part of the video, but the video, like, originally, but the video continues to play. And for some reason they had, well, for one, they tried to resuscitate him, knowing that they killed him. You're trying to resuscitate him. Like, that would have just made me mad. Like, you think I'm stupid or something? Like, oh my gosh. But they tried to resuscitate him. Didn't work. I'm assuming they had her in the backseat of the police car with her daughter. They had Diamond in handcuffs. And she's like, do they not know that I can take these off? At this point, her adrenaline is rushing. She's angry. And her daughter is crying. And she's like, and it was the saddest moment. Her daughter is like, no, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't want you to get shooted too. And of course, from a 4-year-old, we know that she's meaning to say, like, I don't want you to flip out and for them to shoot you too, because I need you. And then the 4-year-old says, I just wish this town was safer. And it's really sad hearing that coming from a 4-year-old, because she doesn't think the town is safe in what she just witnessed from the people who are supposed to keep the town safe. So the police officers made her feel like this town was unsafe. Also, where she lived as well, that was unsafe. So that's just real sad for a 4-year-old to have to go through mentally in their head. And the 4-year-old is literally calming down the mother at this point. So it was just really sad to see all of that. Iyanla even asked Diamond, like, what made you get your phone and go on Facebook Live, but not, like, shield yourself or jump in the back to cover your daughter? And she's like, he told me don't move. So any sudden movements, I could have died too. I felt like my life could be over. So I needed to put it out there somewhere so somebody knows what happened. So it wouldn't be any, well, like, painting Philando out to be the bad guy or painting me out to be the bad guy. Like, no, this is what really happened. So I definitely think, like, that was great thinking. She said that came from God, and that's all that could have came, because who knows what to do in those moments of terror like that. Like, you're not thinking straight. But she was at that moment, because she's able to tell her story. So the next thing you know, she asked her, what about your future without Phil? Diamond starts crying, of course. She's like, I don't even know. Like, I never imagined a future without him. And then so Iyanla asked her, if you could tell that officer anything about Philando or what he did to you, what would you say? And then she said, I would say, I want you to know that you scarred me and my daughter for life, and you exposed us to our deepest fear, which was losing someone that we really loved and that loved us. So I thought that that was like really, really, really sad because, like Diamond said earlier in the show, she saw these things happening, but she never imagined it would be her. And I think that's how a lot of us think. Like, I could only imagine. I don't want to imagine. Like, personally, I think some of these people that go on TV afterwards, or even like Diamond on here, like, especially when they go on TV the night of. We saw Philando's sister on TV that night, and she was saying this is ridiculous. It's like modern day lynching. I'm telling you, like, I would have been just like his sister. Like, I don't know how they do that. It takes all the strength in the world, and my prayers still go out to them, because how do you get past things like that? Like, you don't. Like, it's, I mean, you do eventually, but it would definitely take some time and a lot of support. So I'll get to that. So the next thing you know, we have Iyanla basically telling her, you need to take your life back. I know it's easier said than done, but that police officer did that. That's something he has to live with. You don't have to live with that. Do you still hear the gunshot in your head? Do you still smell the crime scene? Do you still remember everything about that day verbatim? Like, to the last detail? So does he. And he's the one that's not going to be able to sleep at night. But you can take your life back and you can move past this. And Diamond says that's what she's willing to do. So then we have Sabrina, which is Trayvon Martin's mother. It was definitely a special treat having her on the show. We all know of the Trayvon Martin case where his life was taken not even by a police officer, but by, don't get me started on him, because I'm not even going to mention his name, because that really pissed me off to the highest level of festivity. But whatever. Her son has passed away. It has been 5 years at this point. And she still deals with that grief. She takes everything day by day. It's definitely gotten easier since the beginning, but she's had a really big support group. And she talked to Iyanla for a while, but there were a few key things that I took away from her discussion with Iyanla. And the number one thing was, for our youth today, our black men, anybody, when you have an encounter with the police, your number one goal needs to be to make it home safely. Like, just make it home safely. And I thought that that was a really good takeaway from her. She also doesn't understand why police officers are just killing black men. I mean, if somebody did a crime, arrest them. Like, use your training to use restraint and restrain them and arrest them. Let them do their time or have their day in court. You don't have to kill them. You don't have the liberty to take someone's life away from them. So I completely 1000% agree with her in that instance. And I think that's the question that a lot of us ask. Like, okay, like, why don't you shoot the person in the leg, or like restrain them, or you have a taser? Like, why do you have all these other things and you immediately go to try to kill them? Whatever. Then she also said a really big thing, which I am big on. She said our society has become desensitized to murder and to death, especially after all the videos, everything that's on TV, movies, video games. We've become desensitized. So police killing people is like, that's another number. That's another number. That's another number. So she really thinks that that's something that needs to change and improve in today's society. And I completely agree with her. She said she's taking everything one day at a time. And unlike her, Diamond is pretty much taking things 1 hour at a time. But they're trying to get her to move past that. So, of course, Iyanla wants Sabrina to give Diamond some encouraging words. So Diamond and Sabrina meet up together. She basically gives her a few like really good key nuggets. She tells her to find a support group within her community, be around other people who have experienced trauma before. That way they can feed off one another and help each other get past it. Or just have someone to talk to who may somewhat understand what you're going through. Then she says to surround yourself with positive people. If there's negative people around, that's not necessary. You don't need that in your life. You need all positivity right now. Then she tells her favorite Bible verse, which is a really good one, definitely one of my favorite. Tells her to remember Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And that goes for any situation, but definitely in a traumatic situation or something where like you don't understand it and you don't know how you're going to get past it. Like in those situations, you have to pray, because you can't trust in your own understanding. You need guidance from God. So I thought that was a great Bible verse for her to give her. Then she said another really good thing. She said, the more you help others, the better you heal. And that's what she's learned, because she goes around talking to other mothers and women who have experienced trauma of some kind. And she feels like it helps her heal a little bit more and more every time, because she's talking about it. She's getting it out. It's I think she's kind of like able to express herself, and probably she's showing strength that she didn't even realize she had. And I think that's true for a lot of us. When you go through things, it's for a reason. And if you can help somebody else, you're also helping yourself at the same time. So I think that's great. Of course, Diamond thanks Sabrina, and Sabrina is a representation of life after loss. So eventually Diamond knows that she'll be able to get to that point where she's taking it day by day rather than hour by hour. Okay, so then Iyanla sits down with a retired police officer quickly before he meets with Diamond. She basically asked him, like, what can we do to, like, bridge this gap between the police and the Black community and stop these traumatic situations from happening? Like, how do we humanize the police in this situation? And he's like, okay, well, one thing, the police need to do better, like, vetting of their officers to make sure we have good people in place. And then second of all, the police also... He's like, people don't want to hear this, but you need to comply, then complain later. And Iyanla is like, excuse me? Like, you want me to throw both my hands up in the air and that's complying when I have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a law degree, a doctorate's degree, I'm a lawyer, da-da-da-da, and you want me to stand like this and this is compliance? And what am I supposed to tell my 12-year-old grandson that, he is proud and stand bold and proud and coming from your African descent, but when you get around police officers, bow your head? And then I'm like, whoa, like, that was good, because basically, like, that's what they want to happen. But he's like, tell them, like, still be proud of where you're from, but also tell them not all officers are bad. Okay? And I definitely think that's true. Not all officers are bad. I do think that some of them take advantage of their authority that they have in society. And those definitely should be weeded out some type of way. Iyanla asked about training, and then the officer says, no, that's citizens giving police's excuses. Like, we have good training. It's just the fact of them being held accountable for their actions when they don't use that training. And then Iyanla says, yeah, I mean, it's fair to say, like, when you put a gun in the hands of someone who is scared, who has fear, that situation is going to turn out bad. And I definitely think that's exactly what happened with this case with Philando Castile, because even listening to the video, you could hear the police officer in his voice afterwards. He was scared. And he was scared of them because he already had notions of who he thought they were, preconceived notions of who he thought they were before he even went up to their car. So that profiling is a problem as well. Okay, so then we have Diamond meet with him. And Iyanla asked her, and you could tell Diamond's a little uncomfortable, which is understandable. Iyanla asked her, what are you afraid of? Diamond says, I'm afraid of dying. In my eyes, police are associated with death. They represent death to me, which is a sad case, but it is 1,000% true in her situation, and probably to her 4-year-old daughter as well. The police officer did advise her, Diamond, to reach out to her local police department and speak to them, bring them all together and speak to them about who Philando was, like humanize him, make them understand and see it from another point of view, that when you go out here and you're working, even in these like high crime neighborhoods, like everybody is not who you think they are. Like this was a real person. And I'm like, it sounds good. I mean, I guess it's like kind of like emotional training, but that would be extremely hard for me to do. Like extremely hard to go and look in the face of the department who hired a man that was responsible for killing the man that I loved. That is a lot. And I think to this day she still hasn't done that, but unfortunately they haven't reached out to her either. They have reached out to his family, his mother, and to his sister, but they haven't reached out to the woman that was actually in the car, his fiance, and her daughter. They're the ones that are extremely affected because they saw it happen in real time. They lived with him. It's a lot to deal with. So I think they should have been responsible for reaching out to the family, and they should have been responsible for reaching out to her. They hadn't at that point, and that was a really sad fact, and the police even admitted that they're not doing their job on that part. So next thing you know, like he's basically telling her that will bridge the gap. It's just an idea. She leaves on good terms with him. She's very calm with him the entire time. So then, towards the end of the episode, we have, what's her name? Diamond sit down with a lady, some type of doctor. She does energy field tapping. So basically, the purpose of energy field tapping is to tap away the trauma of experiencing like death or grief. So basically, like say someone has passed away, and you have like a certain emotion like harbored inside about it where you can't talk about it without crying. So there's a thing called energy tapping where you're like tapping away that trauma so that you can like be able to experience things. This is what they do. So like for instance, they did like Philando is dead. Um, my life that I had planned with Philando is no longer. Philando was a good man. Da, 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 da. Like you remember him in a different way, and where you would normally be like Philando is dead, and you'd be crying tears. You're tapping away that energy. And I don't know if it's just like focusing your energy on something else, or you're not able to like dig down deeper into that pain, or it's just coming out differently if you're focusing on something else. But whatever the case, we watched her do the exercise, and it really worked. By the end of the exercise, her voice changed. She sounded more confident in what she was saying, and it felt like a relief. So those are, of course, there's all types of different like natural like anxiety exercises and things to do, but I thought that was a really good one that I had never heard of before. So it just takes away the charge of the trauma, but it doesn't take away the memories. You still have great memories, but it takes away that bad charge. Okay, so last but not least, of course, Iyanla sits down with Diamond one last time. Diamond thanks her. She thanks, and then Iyanla thanks her for coming to sit down with her. This was a very educational moment from all of us, even hearing from the perspective of the energy field tapping, the police officer, Diamond, Trayvon Martin's mother. Like the episode was full of surprises, but I do think that it was absolutely great, and I don't know anyone else on TV that would have been able to have this sit down with these two women and the police officer, and have it be this effective rather than Iyanla. So, of course, she ends every episode with a really good quote. Her quote this week was, "Trauma of any kind will leave a lasting imprint on your mind and your soul, and an impression in your life until you talk about it, acknowledge it, and heal it. Accept it, then give yourself permission to live beyond the trauma." It's a great episode. I'm really happy. It doesn't return until August, but I will be here in August to review it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave your comments below, like this video, and be sure to subscribe if you have not. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.